Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
7:37 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up at the 8:05 segment, we'll have Tucker Carlson from the Daily Caller, and at 8:35, Larry Kudlow from CNBC, also his show right here on WMAL. Larry O'Connor here with Brian Wilson.
And look, we have a big, I guess, a fight over a nomination, a confirmation battle brewing in Washington, D.C. It has to do with Chuck Hagel, Republican, been nominated to be the new Secretary of Defense by the President. Of course, it requires the advice and consent of the Senate, and there are some in the Senate who have some real concerns about Chuck Hagel. We thought it a good day to check in with Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, guy who has some opinions about things have to do with the Pentagon and the military. Oliver North, of course, is the host of War Stories on the Fox News Channel and author of the upcoming book, Heroes Proved. Ollie, how are you?
Great to be with you again, guys.
It's all...
Don't think it was a very wise appointment, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get his way.
All right, so tell me why you think it's not a wise appointment.
Well, look at Hagel. I know this guy. He goes way back, and he's obviously a Vietnam era veteran. He is he's been wounded at war. That, of course, is not a pre-qualifier or disqualifier for the job. It's just when Obama says Chuck understands war is not just an abstraction, what does that mean? Does that mean you prepare for war by gutting America's military? He's been a big advocate of reducing the size, numbers of ships, aircraft, troops. He has been a backer of Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, people have got to understand, these two organizations, until the rise of Al-Qaeda, those two organizations killed more Americans than any other terror group.
Hold on, Ollie, I got to stop you. Are you sure that you could call him a backer?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Well, in terms of the engagement, he wants to deal with them as people who represent a real political movement, in the case of Hezbollah in Lebanon, essentially controlling most of the southern part of the country and the Bekaa Valley, and clearly just a proxy for the Iranians, okay? He wants to deal with them as a political force, not as a terror threat. Hamas, he wants to give them the authority of being a true nation state in terms of representing the Palestinian people. He's been an advocate for that. So that's why I say he's been a supporter of those organizations.
Well, considering Hezbollah and Hamas, Colonel North, have vowed to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, what does that say about Chuck Hagel?
It says that he is an Israeli phobe. He has been consistently. Now, here's the dirty little secret about the way things really work in Washington. If Washington wants to deal the Israelis a blow, stop them from doing something, coerce them into doing something they're not doing, the way that's done isn't through the State Department. It's done through the Pentagon, because the Israelis have a largely American-built arsenal to defend themselves. They use it to protect themselves. Everybody knows that. There's not a year goes by since 1948 that Israelis have not been engaged militarily in protecting themselves from the enemies that surround them. If you want to stop the Israelis, as, for example, the Reagan administration did in 1982, when they wanted the movement north toward Beirut to stop, the message was sent very clearly from the Pentagon to the Israeli Defense Ministry: all your spare parts, your fuel, your ammunition have stopped. The ships that were leaving Galveston are still at the pier.
And you're saying, as Secretary of Defense, he will now be able to institute policies like that will undermine Israel.
Exactly.
So, Colonel North, you said last month, you told Newsmax that in 2013, possibly the only option against Iran was to strike their nuclear facility, a military strike. Are you confident that a Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, will be able to oversee that mission?
Not at all. In fact, I see what's happening right now with the sanctions, the so-called sanctions regime, that's theoretically so successful. It's wrecked the Iranian economy, to which I reply, yes, and we did the same thing to the North Koreans, where grass is a vegetable, and they've got nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Right. Look how good sanctions are working there.
I think Chuck Hagel now becomes part of the problem, not part of the solution.
I want to talk to you about what is apparently going to happen here. I mean, Washington right now is in the process of deciding what it should do about guns, semi-automatic and automatic weapons. There's a special group of people headed up by the Vice President, which includes the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and
all the people you go to for guns.
All the people that you go to for good advice on what to do about guns are all meeting in a room to decide how they should tackle this problem.
Okay.
Do you have concerns about that?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, look, full disclosure here, guys. I'm a board member. I'm not just a life member of the National Rifle Association. I'm a board member. I chair their Military and Veterans Affairs Committee of their board of directors. And we're very concerned. I think anybody who cares about the Second Amendment ought to be very concerned. And I see what is very likely to be the largest frontal assault on the Second Amendment that's ever occurred in America, coming out of the aftermath of the horror of what happened up in Connecticut, taking advantage of the terrible calamity that occurred there to force through a political objective that the far left in America has wanted for decades. And if you look at what's coming down the line right behind it, it goes to the heart of what John Kerry is now going to be the master of. America's response to the United Nations so-called Treaty on Arms Trade and Small Arms. This is a double whammy aimed right squarely at the Second Amendment for the American people. It's not just for hunters. It's for those of us who know the real meaning of the Second Amendment.
And you think that's what's at play here?
I do. I think this is probably taking advantage in a way that no one could ever have foreseen.
Colonel North, you are in a very unique position, and I'm going to exploit that position here, if you don't mind.
Larry.
As a board member of the NRA, you are the perfect person to vehemently defend the Second Amendment. Now, I would also like you, just as vociferously, to defend the First Amendment, because you participated in the video game Call of Duty.
Sure.
And people are blaming the video game.
On the double whammy.
Yeah, exactly. People are blaming video games that involve military-style weapons and such, and the realistic aspects of shooting the enemy, the bad guy, which is something that we should encourage in our youth, that they should be against the bad guy. They're saying that that's just as responsible as guns. Many people are. What do you feel about the First Amendment protections?
Yeah, you're right, and many people are saying that. Now, I want everybody to understand, Larry, I am not a spokesman for Activision. They've got their own spokesman.
Right.
I was paid for the work that I did on the game, and I'm proud to have done so. Look, there's absolutely no correlation whatsoever that's ever been proven or offered as medical evidence that playing video games causes people to act violently. In fact, there is a school of thought out there that says this is a way for people to release pent-up aggression, because you can do it with nothing more than the flick of a finger, and you need a lot more than that to carry out the kinds of atrocities that we've seen out in Colorado, up in Connecticut, and by the way, the kind of thing that's going on all over the world, not just in America.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there, Ollie. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Anytime, guys.
OliverNorth.com is the website.
It's War Stories on Fox News Channel, and he's got an upcoming book called Heroes Proved. Oliver North on WMAL, where Washington.